All right. Hello. My name is Jamie Schild, and I will be taking you through today's webinar around waste less, profit more. Founder and CEO of eBay Engineers. I'm just going to want to set the ground rules here a little bit for me and for you. So kind of take a couple minutes here, let folks filter in, but also just let you know questions. If you got them, shoot them across. Don't hesitate. I'll try to check back and forth between my slides and the comments, see if any come trickling in. No worries. If not, if you do have any questions or want anything afterwards, we have lots of templates and good tools here. Feel free to email me at jamie@a-bay.co. So I got tons of stuff for you here today. Really want to give you a systematic approach on how you're going to continually drive down waste in your system. We'll talk about a little bit about what waste we're talking about. Really excited for you. Really excited to be here. Incredibly grateful for Andrew and CBP and hosting this virtual conference. Hope you're having a great conference. Also, one other tip, would like, sitting down, especially in-person conferences, you're sitting down at these tables and chairs for a long time. So just throughout, just get up, stretch out a little bit, and move a little bit. Get the blood flowing a little bit. All right. So let's dive in. We're 2 minutes in. So let's go. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction. We're going to map out systems, identify waste, and generate ideas. And then kind of from there, there's 1,000 ideas out there. We're going to prioritize and implement. We want to continually drive down your waste and up profits. So we're talking about waste and profits kind of hand in hand a little bit, because if you're driving down the amount of resources you use, you're also driving down the amount of money you spend on those resources and up your profit margin. All right. So introduction. I'm going to use a system here that I've used before around Sustainability 101, but also it changed my life. So I just want to give you a quick little overview of this system and talk about how I came about it. So you can, from an emotional standpoint, connect with me a little bit here on what I'm going to go through. Because, back 10, 15 years ago, I was a newly hired civil engineer that was just thrown into the middle of a massive project for a huge city in the US. I want to say any names. I couldn't figure out which way was up, let alone add any value to this huge project. I mean, it was exhausting trying to navigate different systems of teams. One, my company, another one, our consultants that we were paying millions of dollars for, and then our clients that we were on site with. And we were trying to drive down their resource consumption, drive down their waste in the system, and increase their profits too. So similar to what we're talking about today. At the time, I was trying to learn their systems while I was also trying to provide value, because we had just ridiculous deadlines to meet and didn't know where to start really. So something that I struggled with was our subject matter experts kept telling us which ways to reduce, how to reduce this and that. And that meant, and they weren't buying into that approach, because they had hundreds of years of experience on site. And we were coming out and telling them what to do from the side. So that meant millions of dollars were on the line for this project, and quite the stressful working environment, to say the least. So stuff was in shambles. Then all of a sudden, something amazing happened. We switched approaches and introduced more of a team collaborative approach, one that emphasized teamwork and culture, which I want to talk to you about today, getting the most out of that team and that culture, one that built up our client and enabled their teams, getting the most out of their incredible workforce. You have incredible people, and it shouldn't fall on you if you're the owner, if you're the operations manager. It shouldn't fall on you. Get the most out of the team. So rather than us in this project telling them what needed to be done, like most engineers, I'm a civil engineer, I like to do that. I think I know. And tell you what waste areas you can reduce, but I want to build a collaborative path with you to move forward with. So that's what we did with this large city. After watching a partner from a huge management consulting firm work this new approach with our first prioritization workshop, which we'll talk about today, I was asked, maybe told, that I'd be running that next workshop. And holy cow, I'm doing this. But after a week of anxiety, I got up in front of a group of experts that were all at least 20 years older than me. and followed this framework. They asked good questions, or I asked good questions. And I tried not to sound like I didn't know what I was talking about, because I just had been introduced to this framework. I was trying to get the most out of the team. Then something amazing happened. The buy-in from the team, the ideas, what they prioritized, like we're going to talk about today, was incredible. Things that they had talked about for years and just never got that buy-in from management, or vice versa. Management never got buy-in from staff. All of a sudden, there was a collaborative approach on which way we were going to move forward. And we're going to talk about that today. And from here, like, an easy and digestible roadmap was built. And we were able to achieve something incredible, guys. It was $150 million a year of value for our client. I mean, they were talking about savings and impact, but I was talking about waste reduction. I was talking about carbon footprint reduction. I was floored. It was amazing what we came out of there with. So from there, I've tweaked and fine-tuned this system to come up with an approach that works for us, something that is easily digestible. So like myself coming in, able to run that workshop, I want you to be able to run these workshops with your staff, run them with yourself around your activities and what you need to prioritize and not. And this structured approach reduces risk as well. So with waste, you might want to tweak a process. You might be trying to get more beer, reduce loss throughout the process. Well, that might expose you to some risk. So this process is going to reduce risk and reduce ideas from falling flat on their face, and then that continual improvement afterwards. So that's the system we're going to be going through today. That seriously has changed my life. Went from a civil engineer that didn't know what way it was up to, a hero on this project. And it was all because of this collaborative, systematic approach that we're going to talk through here today. So at a high level, here's what we're going to go through. Fine-tuned it a little bit for waste, but we're going to generate ideas. We're going to prioritize those ideas based on how easy they are to do and how much impact they're going to have. Then we're going to build out a project plan. That's the risk reduction. That's the buy-in from staff on where we're going to move forward with. And then that continuous improvement pipeline and in the tracking, the progress on the side here. So we're talking about waste, right? You probably joined today thinking, oh, I want to just get a bunch of ideas around waste. Well, I want to give you a bunch of ideas, but also give you that system that we talked about to continually find new forms of waste that you can reduce, continually improve your waste and your carbon footprint. So in my career, I've been exposed to, I want to say, two different forms of waste. One on the side here with landfill, garbage, waste. I'll say three forms. Then a second, the liquid waste, the wastewater and the wastewater treatment processes. So we'll say solid waste for the garbage. We'll say liquid waste for wastewater treatment. And then we'll say process waste on the other side here. So if you hear lean manufacturing principles, different forms of waste in a process, we're talking about, overproducing. You're talking about how many times do you have to go back and get a piece of equipment or a screwdriver that didn't fit and walk back. So the motion around your site. So we're not going to talk too much about waste in terms of the process and lean manufacturing today. We're going to mostly talk about this, but know that there's lots of different ways waste is talked about in our industry. And this is just as valuable as landfill and solid waste, or solid waste and liquid waste, but it's totally different thought process. All right. So step one of this system is mapping out the process, getting everybody on board of where waste is generated at your facility, and then generating ideas around how to reduce that waste. My two quick takeaways here are being open and honest with your team. Be transparent with your team to help them understand why we're going down this road. What's our why? I'm going to talk about that a lot today. Understanding why we're doing things is critical. So if you're just going to say we're trying to find ways to reduce waste in our process, Okay, that's the what, but why are we doing it? Do we have sustainability targets we're trying to meet? Are there profit margin targets we need to hit? Helping them understand why. And we're going to have some workshops here that we're going to talk through, and having an open and trusting environment, like I talked about before, Dan Croyle and the culture code, that psychologically safe environment for folks to have, constructive criticism, to be able to challenge each other in a prioritization workshop like we're going to talk about, to be open and honest. That's the goal. And then second key takeaway here is having everybody understand where waste is coming from. So if I'm in this process over here, if I'm in the accounting team and I'm in this meeting around reducing waste, I need to, because I have a great perspective, I need to understand everything. And a brewer is going to have a different perspective than the accountant, than the taproom manager. So getting everybody on that same page with where we're producing waste is critical. Okay, so things to consider here around waste as you're mapping out your process, as you're coming up with ideas, which we'll talk about. The 3 R's to recycling, or the 3 R's to sustainability, I'll say. The biggest one being reduce. Where does our waste come from? Are there alternatives out there that don't have waste? Do we actually need this item in this process, in this system that's producing the waste? So if we can reduce the amount of waste, plain and simple, that's step one. Second, if there's a piece of waste from a process that we need to do, can we reuse that piece? Is there cardboard that we can reuse? Is there material can be composted, or is it compostable? Like the spent grain, is there a bakery close by that wants to use some of this for part of their baked goods and have that circular economy, we'll call it? We'll have to dive into that. If reach out to me if you want to learn more about that, please. That's a whole other topic. And the last bit is the recycle. So if you can't reduce, you can't reuse, and you have a product, make sure it's recyclable. Are there alternative materials that can be recycled? And talk to that supplier that the packaging from this material needs to be thrown away, or the plastic bottle at the end of this product can't be recycled. We'll talk to them. What can you do to give us a product that is in a recyclable form? And there's no cut and dry here. Unfortunately, what is recyclable for you is different than what's recyclable for me, just the way the recycling centers work. So check in with that. And actually, TerraCycle is a great platform for if you're like, I have 2 dogs, and dog food, the bag that it's brought in is not recyclable, but through TerraCycle, you can keep building up the amount and they'll send you a package to recycle that. So look at them. Okay. So now you know how we're looking at waste. We're not going to do it today, but the idea would be to map your current state and determine where waste is generated. So you can see here, we quickly had mapped. So this was around electrical optimization with a client of ours, and we mapped out the various steps, and we generated ideas around the various steps of how to reduce energy. Here we're talking about waste. So I would do that same thing with your team, and get a group of 5 folks together, ideally 5 to 8. So you got a facilitator maybe, and you have somebody that's really understands the whole process. Have them map it out, and then as they're mapping it out and talking through the process, if somebody can also give, what type of waste is generated at each step of the process, be very useful. And then get sticky notes. And as they're talking through the process, talking about where the waste is generated, write down on sticky notes different ideas and put them against each of the process areas. So you can see, okay, around the chiller, we had this idea to reduce energy. Around brew process, what type of waste is generated there, and what ideas do we have to reduce that? So collaboratively map out the process, generate ideas around each step of the process, and then we'll take those ideas into a prioritization workshop prioritization framework after this. So just some quick ideas that I had that I've seen across the industry. So the reason I don't want to just dive into 50% of people can do this and that, because it's so different for what works for you right now. Something that works for you next year might not work right now, or vice versa. It works for you right now, but didn't work last year. Just the timing of all this. So I firmly believe that with this process, you're talking 20, 30, 40% reduced waste if you just give this system and let it happen, where you're collaboratively generating ideas and you're prioritizing them together. So here's just a list of 9 ideas and different types of waste throughout a process. So like plastic wrap. There's a great company out there that does giant rubber bands. There's if you have an attic in your building, a client of ours had an attic and the actual hatch doesn't have any insulation on it. And you could literally feel drafts, both warm and cold, coming through there throughout the year. So it's a lot of waste on HVAC requirements. So different little type of waste, like energy waste. These next two, around the brew process. Okay, there's folks out there diverting yeast and hops waste to farms, not just spent grain. They're work together with them and are diverting yeast and hops. What about the rinse and wash down water? Can you find areas to reduce that, from the rinsing of tanks and whatnot? And then cardboard, the amount of cardboard and pallet waste that's built up from breweries, it's incredible. Can you reuse it here or a local business? Is there a packaging facility nearby that you can reuse, shred the material and use it for something else? There's lots of ways to reduce or reuse cardboard out there. My favorite idea, super easy to do. We'll talk about easy versus impact here in a second, is sorting trash. Okay, so having bins of garbage, recycling, and compost, and having images of actual what goes in each of the bins. So not even just front of house, back of house too. The amount of folks that need the visual, I need visuals. When I go to a brewery and I see, okay, they have food truck, which bin does this go in? And having visuals above garbage versus recycling is super useful. I guarantee you'll get extra 10, 20% waste diversion from your landfill by just educating folks on what goes where. I love that one. Highly recommend that. Reusable serving equipment, glassware, non-single use items on that one. HVAC waste, like we talked about with the Arctic air, and energy waste. Just lots of ideas out there. Highly recommend you consult your energy provider for a free energy audit. They're available here in Colorado. 4 of our clients for free have gotten them through the energy or through Excel. Call them up and request one, and they'll come up with 1,000 ideas for you to reduce energy, HVAC demand. So use your resources available to you to generate ideas. Do a waste audit. Oh gosh, I had to do a couple waste audits back in my early 20s, and diving into garbage and sorting through their waste streams and identifying what's actually being thrown away that could have been recycled, what's being thrown away that could have been composted, and giving the towns a good example of where their waste is coming from and what's actually reusable. And do the same with your facility. Do the same at your house. Look at your trash every once in a while. I mean, much easier would be just look at your recycling and see, okay, how many beer bottles are in there? Could I do a growler instead? Same with wine. Like we're talking about alcohol. You're like, wine, there's a lot of growler type of fill stations for everything, whether it's bathroom waste, whether it's whatever waste you have recycling, there's lots of reusable. So you get out of that single use. So lots of ideas out there. I'm not going to dive in too much on that, because I think It's been proven to me over and over again that the value is in the system and that continuous improvement and enabling your folks to come up with ideas. So we got a list of ideas. Now what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna start? Where do we get started? Here's a system for you to find out where to get started. So we talked about that open and trusting environment. That is so key here in this next phase where you're prioritizing the ideas. Make it safe to fail. It's okay to throw out a bad idea. There's no bad ideas. And secondly, let the process here that I'm going to walk you through work itself out. If you're a brewery owner and you got a workshop with 5 of your staff, don't push an agenda that you have that you want this waste stream, this waste idea to be implemented. Let the process work itself. Come to a collaborative group consensus and have a healthy debate on where ideas lies in this matrix that I'm going to talk about. So have that group discussion here around this matrix and where your ideas fall. So this is so powerful. The amount of business owners I've talked to after this, a workshop where we're going through this matrix, they're floored. I can't believe we came up with that idea and prioritized it. I had no idea. That type of impact, or I had no idea my ideas were going to be so hard to implement. So highly valuable here. We got some tools that if you hit me up at jamie@abay.co, I'll send them your way for free. No big deal. So introduction here. So on the left, you can slice this any way you want. I find the best way is to have the impact on your y-axis and ease of implementation on the x-axis. And the further right you go, the further up you go, the better. Ta-da. You want green, top right-hand corner. What in the perfect world, what's that idea that you can implement today that's going to have a huge impact? So with this, in our workshops, usually we'll have the flip charts with the sticky across the side, and we'll go around the room and let's say we have 15 ideas here. We'll go around the room and we'll put up a matrix on each of the flip charts. And this is idea 1. This is reducing the attic or increasing the attic insulation. And then idea number 2 is around reuse of wastewater. Idea number 3, and everybody will go around and like this, put a dot on the idea on where it falls in that matrix. Just quick and dirty. Spend about 5 minutes going around the room and putting up a dot and where you think it falls. How much impact are we going to have here? So I'll dive into that a little bit more. So you need to collaboratively determine what the impact is going to be for your team. For a brewery that's producing 100,000 barrels versus 1,000, impact is going to be greatly different. If you're a team of 3 versus a team of 50, much different impact and much different what easy looks like for you too. So basically high impact up top. There's kind of 3 ways I'm looking at impact usually. It's for around waste here is like the waste volume reduction. Is it a huge amount of waste volume reduced? $100,000 disposal cost reduction would be enormous. So the amount of disposal cost reduction, you're paying for that bin to be out there. So if you can reduce the amount of times it's being hauled away because you're reducing the waste in there, it's a savings. That's recurring too. So how much savings are we going to have versus high at 10K versus low at $1? So you're going to customize that for your team. And then operationally, will it make life better by not having that waste? This would be a bit more on the process waste we talked around. So if you're constantly moving around like in a spider web and making all these movements, that's a lot of waste that you're doing. The non-value add activities I should have talked about on that are waste. What the client isn't paying for. So with beer, they're paying for that brew process. They're paying for the beer. So what activities are you doing that are not value add, that are more ancillary or just pure waste? So As we're evaluating these ideas, what ideas are going to make life better? If you're not wasteful with your movements, you're going to have a happier day-to-day work environment and happier employees too. So something really valuable to use here as you're evaluating your ideas. And then on the x-axis, how hard is this going to be to do? So if it's a huge impact, but it's going to take 2 years to do, it's like beating my head against the wall. Versus something easy to do that you can see and build momentum, highly prioritize those. So I like to live, over here on the days, weeks type of approach versus years and high impact. So create that momentum, find those ideas over here. And last bit here with this. So this is where the power is here. So everybody has their idea. Apologies for bouncing around a little bit. So you've each evaluated the singular ideas individually, and make sure if you're a business owner, you're not going first and putting your dot and everybody has to follow suit. So you're starting individually with each idea and plotting where you think that idea falls. And then after that, you want to go and you want to collaboratively come to a consensus for this idea. So here's idea one, and here's our team prioritization afterwards. So as a team, prioritize idea number one on where it falls in the matrix. If all the dots are exactly in the same spot, super simple. Okay, that's where the team thinks it is. You put that dot on the final matrix. Apologies. You put that dot on a final matrix as a team. Okay, number one falls here. Let me just get out here. So let's say number one. Here you go. Here's as a team. Then number two, coming over here and moving that. And okay, it's a little bit easier to now you can come to a line in the sand on that first idea, how easy it is to implement versus the impact. And then the second one, you can compare. Okay, is number two a little bit easier or harder on the X? So right here for this example, let's say number two is a little bit harder, but a little bit more impact. And number three, everybody agreed that it was in the top left corner over here. So we'll just move that one here. Boom. How about number four? Okay, well, number four, somebody's idea was over here and somebody's evaluation was down here on hard to do and low impact. But somebody else's idea was up here where easy to do and high impact. So that's the power here. Now we can have this debate, healthy debate, psychologically safe debate to understand where four actually falls. Is it right in the middle between those two? Or can the top right-hand corner person convince that bottom left corner person that here's where that idea falls? So you'll go through and as a team, evaluate and prioritize the ideas that work for you. Get back here. And then have those healthy debates over and over again with each idea. So you can see some of those examples here, like this idea here. This is for wastewater plants. Apologies, I don't have any good ones with our brewery clients. You can see somebody over here this is the idea. This is genius versus somebody over here. This is a terrible idea. So we had a really good debate in this one and ended up being right in the middle as a team. So that's this idea over here, number 6. So as a team, have those debates and come up to a group consensus of where the ideas fall and where we want to prioritize. So you get everything on that team matrix over here on the left. And what ideas do we want to work on? We've prioritized these ones. I would say pick 2 waste reducing ideas and run with it. Come to a team consensus of which ideas are going to be best for us and run with it. So once you get them all on that final team matrix, hey, obviously here, these ideas were pretty good, 3 and 4, but they actually just didn't want to do them because it's going to be hard. Or these 2, don't know what they were. It's going to be just there's a lot going on in that system right now. Let's do these 2 other ones first, build that momentum, which is so powerful, build the old mo, and decide what 2 ideas you're going to move forward with to this next phase. And communicating to, maybe you had 5 folks in that workshop, but maybe there's 20 folks on site. Communicating what ideas you came up with down here and which ones you prioritize, so everybody is on the same page and on the same page with what the path is moving forward. So that prioritization, I can't emphasize enough the power of it, and getting everybody on that same flat organizational level and being able to challenge each other, and not, I've been here the longest, top down. No, this is collaborative. Everybody's safe. There's no bad, wrong answers here. So that's the power. But then, how many times have you had an idea and it's fell flat? So the secret sauce is in the actual planning and implementation, and then that continual improvement of these ideas too. So we got tons of ideas. Now let's prioritize down to 2, and then let's actually have a robust implementation strategy here. So these 2 you can use on anything. So having a proper planning and implementation, and then continually driving down waste and not profits, these can go across your organization with other things too. So my 2 key takeaways to plan and implement your waste reducing initiative is have an initiative owner. So who is the general for this idea? Maybe it's the person that knows the process the best. Maybe it's somebody younger that wanted to step up and they really are passionate, they have great ideas. And then secondly, what's the key performance indicator, that KPI, like a lot of folks have talked about already at CBP? And what's the goal for that KPI? So this idea around, the attic air insulation, maybe you have you're going to get that insulated and reduce that draft. Well, maybe you put a little temperature control up there, and that's your KPI, and you're trying to reduce the fluctuations up there. Or maybe it's overall energy usage, and that's a big one. If you reduce that envelope improvement, we're calling it, from the attic, be a great KPI to track. Okay, so before you're building this plan of how to implement that attic insulation or the rinse water reduction, you need to understand that change is hard. Change is exhausting. So if you quickly review how change can stick, you're going to build that action plan, the implementation plan, a bit more robust, and identify these areas to address. So this is a management consulting firm's approach, but I love it. So not trying to steal it from them. This is McKinsey's approach. You have, I will change my mindset and behavior if these 4 steps are followed. So role modeling. If you're trying to do something and your manager isn't doing it, then why am I going to do it? The fostering understanding and conviction. That why are we changing? Why are we doing this? What is the actual goal of this whole program? Do we want to reduce our waste by 20%? Boom. There you go. Making sure you come back to the why. Come back to the why over and over and over again. Actually, I read something the other day that you need to emphasize or reiterate your core values and your vision 7 or 8 times before people actually understand it and actually get it. So the same thing with the why here, why you're trying to change. You're going to have to reiterate it 7 times. Reinforcing with formal mechanisms, the processes and the structures are in place. I love, like, if you're trying to implement a software change, how many folks are using it? You wanted 10, you only got 5. Well, let's track and monitor how many people are doing it. And then the last bit, which is so overlooked in my opinion, is the talent and skills required to actually reduce the waste. So is the training, the SOP in place to actually give the people the skills, and here's what you need to do to be able to do that. Please don't hesitate to ask questions around that as well. It's super valuable to understand change, because goes across your organization that you need to address it. So try to quickly go through some of this stuff, but developing best practices and standardization of an action plan. So the initiative owners, so we got that rinse water reduction initiative. We'll use that one from now on. Who's owning that? And then here's how you build out an action plan to implement that. You need all the steps, you need owners, you need deadlines, and you need kind of action trackers to track and monitor. And why are you doing this? That why? Because you want to align that team on the plan to move forward with, create that transparency of here's where we're going. And create clear schedules for our parties. Well, clear schedules for all parties to understand timing. The accountability of the plan. If you put it out there, you put your goal out there of I'm going to lose 5 pounds, and you put it out there, you're more likely to hit it. So accountability of the plan, if somebody builds it and then they put it up on a board or they share it digitally, and ownership, that general, like I talked about. And just some steps, list out all the necessary steps to achieve the desired results. Collaboratively do it with another team member. Assign owners to each step of the plan, create those deadlines. Deadlines are key. Align on statuses you'd like to use to track. Love that one. So don't think about it until you actually are trying to come up with the status of this idea. It's like, okay, is this open? And then it goes to in progress, and then a review, and then a closed or ongoing tracking of it. So kind of coming up with statuses for your team that you're going to use to track each of the action status, and document the action plan at your HQ. This is from where we want kind of a HQ being referred to as like a corner of your facility where you're tracking and monitoring initiatives, performance. You might have dashboards that you print out and you have discussions around. So that's what we're talking about here when we say HQ and printing out and writing down on a whiteboard. So this idea is coming up with a plan for the work, and then you're going to work the plan as you implement, right? That deadline of next week sounds great until you actually dive into the details and realize it's going to be 2 months. So work the plan. Just real quick on a high level, here's an initiative plan with, the overarching idea and then the owners of it. So for this instance, this was the energy stuff we were talking about, reducing chiller spikes. Johnny's the overall owner, and then the deadline is December 1st for the whole idea. Here are the specific steps that are going to help implement that idea and the owners of each of those, with deadlines and then status. So here, pretty simple. We were just seeing the progress of 0%, 25 to 100. Tons of different platforms out there to do this. I love ClickUp. If you haven't tried it, please use ClickUp. It is a great project management tool. Simple. Google Sheets, I think, are great too. Point being, just make it collaborative and share it. All right. Any questions there on that? As I said, if you're listening to this after the fact, don't hesitate. We got a bunch of templates around action trackers that will really help you dive in there. But ClickUp is great. So now you got this plan, and now we need to iterate it. We need to work that plan. We need to continually build ideas and continually drive down the waste. This isn't just come up with the idea, test something, and then move on. This is a process that's going to it's going to provide you with differentiator. You're going to continually drive down waste, continually drive up profits. I guarantee it. So this is, I like to call it performance management, not in terms of like goal setting at the beginning of the year and then reviewing. Performance management in the terms of here's our plan and how are we tracking and monitoring and continually improving against that. So scorecards, talked a lot about KPIs. That's a hot topic these days, but creating a scorecard where you can visually see performance of these waste ideas that you have. So we identified, the reuse of rinse water. So how many gallons of water are we using? Might be the KPI. And then we're tracking against targets and upper and lower control limits. So you want to operate in an operating band that you agree on. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Second takeaway is properly preparing for meetings. So if you're coming into a meeting and you don't know what it's about, how prepared can you be? If there's no agenda, don't start a meeting. We'll dive into that, but properly preparing for meetings is key, and getting the most out of your initiatives and your team. So we recommend you come up with these ideas and you have weekly initiative review meetings, and maybe shift to bi-weekly once you kind of get the ball rolling. But up front of that meeting, you need to prepare. Preparation is a key to success. So updating that action tracker, so you have the action plan. Okay, coming into the initiative review meeting, where are we with these ideas? And then updating the scorecard, I'll call it, I love the term scorecard, of how we're doing against those targets with these initiatives. And then going into the initiative review meeting, like, we love to have initiative boards where kind of a whiteboard has what the idea is, the KPIs right there. Could be a dashboard in something like Google Data Studio that I highly recommend. Very powerful. Having that updated, having those visuals in front of everyone that you can talk to. And then that weekly actual review. We recommend standing around that board and talking, have the initiative owner present the progress of that initiative. So valuable. So quickly, you can see here just a couple examples of Google Data Studio dashboards. There's tons of platforms out there, Power BI, Sisense, you name it. But having a good scorecard to track and monitor your performance. So you can see here on the bottom, I love this of having, this isn't a waste reducing initiative, but it's tracking and monitoring your original gravities. So you can see, here's our target, and then here's our upper limit that we agreed on, and here's our lower limit. And you can see October, if I was able to click in there, you'd be able to see it was one batch that was 20% off. But able to dive into the details and track and monitor performance is so valuable. Creating targets, because let me tell you real quick, the amount of times I've been with a team and they're a bit down on maybe progress, and maybe there's some butting heads in these meetings, then all of a sudden you take a step back and you look at the data and you say, okay, we've hit that goal 50% of the time. And these maybe 30% more of the time, we're really close. And then it's the 20% down here that's causing the whole average to come down. So you maybe look at that. Or a lot of times I've seen folks be down, but they actually hit the goal that we had set 4 months ago already. And there's just this incremental improvement that you don't really notice because you're too deep in the weeds. But when you take a step back and you see, okay, we're actually above our target, we're above our goal, you got to celebrate those wins. You celebrate. We'll have to, I mean, the amount of time we could spend on KPIs and scorecards and how they help you reduce your waste. I mean, we could spend 3 hours on that, but we only got a couple minutes left here. So we'll dive into this last bit, which is minimizing your weekly meeting times and reducing waste in your processes. So when I say waste there, we're talking about if 5 people are sitting in a meeting for an hour where it could have been done in 30 minutes, that's 2.5 hours of waste that was happening because of inefficiency in your meeting. So if you properly prepare for the meeting, you have clear ground rules of how the meeting is going to operate, and then you have great follow-up and end of meeting practices, you're going to get so much more out of your employees. You're going to get so much more out of these initiatives too. So sending out an agenda ahead of time. I highly recommend everybody go through an exercise I like to call, or I don't have a name for it yet. Does this person need to be invited or not? Can they just be informed? Everybody wants to invite everybody, but do me a favor and just send me a recap email. Send me an email for input too beforehand. I've heard also folks having an agenda manager. Okay, everybody needs to send Jamie their ideas for an agenda by noon the day before the meeting, especially if it's a weekly recurring meeting. And then they're sending it the agenda by the end of the day. And then in meeting, having good time management. The agenda is clear and has some time allocation. Then you almost need a time manager in the agenda to say, hey, you said 10 minutes on this. We're at 8 minutes. We need to start wrapping this up. So continually look at time and come back to the goal. I should have said this first. Why are we having the meeting? What's our goal? And then in the meeting, coming back to that goal and continue revisiting it is so powerful. And if you determined the person should be there, then you should get their involvement. So making sure everybody's actually involved in the meeting, highly valuable. Then that recap and follow up, pretty straightforward, but people don't do it. At the end of the meeting, what are the clear actions and next steps? And then send that follow-up email the next day to reiterate it. Your perspective is different than mine. I guarantee it. So if I hear something, I'm going to use my past, my perspective to understand and put my take on it, which is going to be different than yours. So if I'm the meeting owner, I got to send that recap and align with folks on the next steps. So also feedback is a great one. You'll love this. Send me an email. I'll shoot you this feedback template. You'll hate it at first, I guarantee, but the amount of input you'll get from your employees will be so valuable. So just a quick template for feedback. Give me a rating. If I'm from this workshop, this webinar, give me a rating, 1 to 10 scale. I love the pizza review guy. It's got to be a decimal. Give me an 8.2. And then go through, have your folks go through each of these. The overall review of the meeting, your in meeting, still some customization for you that you can do in here. The preparation of the meeting versus the end of meeting. Did we do this or not? And then, what could have we done better? Kind of open answer. How did you feel about the culture? Was I throwing waste down your throat, or was it open, safe, trusting environment? So, let's see where we're at here. Yeah. So, as I said, my name is Jamie Schild with A-Bay Engineers. I had so much fun talking to you today, and I really believe that ideas are only as good as the people that come up with them. So I shot 9 ideas out there. If you want more specific ideas around a specific process, shoot me an email, and I'll come we can generate ideas together. But I want to give you that systematic approach that you can continually drive down your waste. We need different approaches here. The climate is urgent, or climate action is urgent right now. So do me a favor, go at it with this approach, systematically prioritize ideas to reduce your waste, implement them properly, and then come back. Okay, so once you get that, I like to call business as usual with your ideas, come back and prioritize 2 new ones. That might be every 6 months, it might be every 2 weeks, but prioritize 2, implement them, track and monitor effectively, get the most out of that idea, then come back around and implement 2 more ideas. All right. I can't express my gratitude enough for you being here and the opportunity to speak with you. Andrew, thank you so much for holding this space. Really appreciate you and all you're doing. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Craft Beer Professionals virtual conference. Good luck to all the other presenters out there. Really appreciate what you do as well. Thank you so much.